Meet Chief Rotundo, a mouth and rod puppet I created for my puppeteer son. This was my third attempt at making a working mouth and rod puppet, and the first one that really worked. I used 3 patterns from projectpuppet.com, the pinhead puppet pattern, the alternate body, and the legs and feet pattern. To increase the finished size of the puppet, I enlarged the pattern to 115% of its original size. Step 1. Cutting the foam and fabric pieces. I found this foam at Skycraft, a surplus store in the Orlando, Florida area. It was meant to be used to replace automobile roof linings and has a fabric coating on each face which can be removed easily if you wish. I traced all of the foam pattern pieces onto the foam. The foam had been stored in a roll and had developed a memory, so I arranged the pieces to take advantage of the foam's tendency to curve in a particular direction. I cut the foam using long razor blades used in polymer clay crafting. They are extremely sharp, but you have to be careful not to cut your fingers, too. I've protected the countertop with a self-healing mat normally used when you cut fabrics for quilting using a rotary cutter. Once all of the foam pieces were cut, there are enough pieces for 2 puppets in this photo. I traced and cut all of the fabric pattern pieces from fleece. Again, there are 2 puppets worth of pieces in this photo. Step 2. Next it was time to start sewing the fleece. I began with the feet and legs. First, the top of the foot was sewn to the leg piece at the ankle. Then the sole of the foot needed to be added. The sole was pinned to the top of the foot, but the toes were not cut out at this point. I carefully stitched along the lines I had traced from the pattern, then trimmed away the excess fabric between the toes and turned the feet and legs inside out. I added small amounts of polyester fiberfill at a time until I got the foot shaped the way I liked it. Then I added a roll of fiberfill to the lower leg and placed a pin where I thought the knee should be. I placed another roll of fiberfill for the puppet's thigh, then tacked the knees in place with a few tiny stitches that became hidden in the fleece. When Rotundo is being used on camera or behind a curtain or stage, his legs and feet will just get in the way, so they're made to be attached with hook and loop tape so that they can be detached when necessary. So that the body will not be scratchy to the puppeteer when the legs are not attached, the hook portion of the tape is attached to the top of the legs. The loop portion will be attached to the lower part of the body section later. Step 3. Constructing the body. I had trouble getting the hot glue to stick the foam together, so I made the seams in the alternate body foam using needle and thread. First, the darts in the body fabric were sewn. Then I added a belly button by stitching around a plastic ring on the underside of the body fabric. This created the circle indentation of the belly button on the outside of the body fabric. Then I stitched the back seam of the body. I decided that I didn't like the shape of the foam body. I wanted it to be fatter, so I found these large hollow foam Easter eggs at Michael's. I cut the top and bottom off of the large egg and the bottom off the smaller egg. I had thought I could use the small egg as the skull, but that didn't work out. To give the puppet greater range of motion with the head, the neck is not attached to the body at the neck. To finish the top of the body structure, I beveled the inner edge of the upper opening and then glued the body fabric to the opening. Once the body was finished, I attached the loop portion of the hook and loop tape to the underside of the body and stuck the legs on. Step 4. Building the arms. I pinned the arm pieces together and then stitched along the lines traced from the pattern, leaving an opening on the underside of the arm so that I could install the rods and stuffing later. I trimmed close to the stitching and turned the arms inside out. To make the hands posable, I cut pieces of foam using the arm pattern. Then I couched florist stem wire to the edges of the foam hand pieces. I left a tail of wire on each end of the hand wire to attach it to the rods. I used short metal plant stakes for the rods, clipping most of the spiral off with bolt cutters. Dowels are glued to the ends to make them easier to use. The tails of the wire are wound tightly around the rods to provide more control when moving the hands. I carefully pushed the foam and wire pieces of the hand into the hand fabric, then stuffed the arms using the same technique as I used in the legs so that I could create elbows, and added a small amount of polyester fiberfill into the hands. I slip-stitched the openings in the arms closed. Step 5. Creating the head. The first step to creating the head was stitching the darts and seams in the fabric head cover. The fabric neck has one seam in the back. The top will be attached to the bottom of the head, and the bottom of the neck sleeve will be sewn to the bottom of the body so that the head can move freely when the puppet is finished. Pieces of foam core are glued to the underside of the foam mouthpiece to stabilize the mouth opening. Later, tubes of foam were added to provide a place for the puppeteer's fingers to control the mouth. The foam skull pieces were hot glued together. This is the front of the skull. This is the back. The pink inner mouth fabric piece is first sewn to the head cover fabric, then to the foam mouthpiece from the side opposite the foam core glued on earlier. Then the head assembly is turned inside out and the foam skull placed inside. Step 6. Adding the facial features. To make the eyes and nose, I used plastic Easter eggs that split on the long axis of the egg. I chose the unprinted side of these eggs because the bulge was more pronounced. I placed foam tape along the inside of each egg half, then pulled fleece fabric around the edges tightly. One egg was covered with the fleece fabric of the body to form a nose, the other two with white to form the eyes. Covering the egg halves with fleece allows me to sew them onto the head rather than hot gluing them. First I add the nose, then the eyes, then the eyebrows made of small feather boas are stitched into place. I add small circles of black felt sewn on for the pupils of the eyes. Then the neck fabric was sewn on. Step 7. The finishing touches. I stripped the silk leaves off of 3 bushes from the floral department at Michael's, then sewed them to the base of the body to create Rotundo's garment. Then added hair made of 2 feather wristlets. I love the movement that the long feathers give this puppet. I gave him an anklet made of additional silk leaves, and a small rubber chicken from a keychain went onto his spear that was purchased at a costume shop along with the bone necklace and earrings. Step 8. Rotundo in action. This photo is of my son and his new puppet. Note the hair blowing in the wind. I was very pleased at how he was able to give Rotundo personality by moving him and posing him in different ways.